Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, work, everyone. Sorry. Welcome to the next Wasteless World Talks, on which we write on the back of a language towards wasteless world. And the very strange thing today, I choose a word in Czech which does not exist in English. So we will start with substitute, and then I will explain the term. Bill, I have you on the top of my screen, so I will start with you. The term is to wait, like waiting. My question to you is the same as usually. So what came first to your mind when you hear the term?
The first thing that came to my mind was, well, this will be an interesting and unique session. I don't know where he's taking this one, but we'll see.
Kevin,
I'm Big
sorry.
Fat Zero, sorry.
All right. What about you, Kevin?
I was thinking this expression, good things come to those who wait rather than to wait. Although I think waiting is generally seen as a negative occupation rather than a positive.
Mark, you are
Well,
the from.
I automatically switched to another word, which was queue. So
Ah,
to wait in line is to queue. And then there are lots of things to do with queue. And then, of course, there has to be some Shakespearean overtone to wait or not to wait. Possibly you can understand why it wasn't used in Hamlet. To be or not to be is that much better. Yes. Sorry, so that was a random thing, queuing and waiting for something.
I think queuing is the typical British thing. So it must be the first one, of course. But I will explain. I will explain the term in Czech. So we have the term wait or to wait, which sounds in Czech čekání. So a simple word which is used almost daily. But then we have a special word for the end of waiting. Means usually in the positive way, like you are waiting for exam and then finally you reach the term. We try to find out an expression in English which, let's say, express what this one word says. And it's similar to what Kevin says. Whatever waits will get what they deserve. So this sentence is generally very close to the term DOČKAT se. And I was so surprised that I did not find it in English. Then I tried to find it in German. I tried to find it in other languages. And I didn't find it. But it's the end of the waiting, this dočkat se, this feeling of seeing someone on the top of stairs you are waiting for. It's quite interesting. Why do you think that languages has words which are completely missing in other languages? Is there any reason for that?
Know that in Danish, they have a very, compared to English, not a very, but a smaller vocabulary, and they seem to manage just fine. I think that English and Spanish have very large vocabularies. But yeah, I think it depends. It's of course it's a very much a cultural thing. What you're interested in talking about. I think that some languages like Russian, English, and German are extremely good for poetry. Surprisingly enough, when you think you would imagine that they're very good for scientific work, but they're also extremely good for poetry, which I think is lovely.
I just wrote the word in the chat, so if you would like to use some translator online or whatever, this is how it sounds in Czech or how it's written in Czech. So, do you think that when the vocabulary is not so rich, maybe every single word must be as powerful as possible?
It's interesting, in Danish, they have the same word for leg as they do for bone. So I asked them what a leg bone was. They looked at me as if I was an idiot.
In when America was being settled back in the 1500s, 1600s, there were two areas of the country. One was in Virginia, and those settlers came from a part of England where Shakespeare was known. And so everybody came over with a Bible and a book of all of Shakespeare's plays. The the language was very rich, as you might imagine, especially as compared to those Englishmen who came over into the Massachusetts colony. I don't remember the numbers, but there was a huge difference in the number of words. In the Massachusetts colony, it was very religion driven. They were escaping from the religions in England. I'm showing my lack of knowledge here. So, but there were so they're from both came from England, and yet there was a big difference in the number of words in the language. That's to your question earlier, Michael, about why some languages don't have certain words in there.
What do you think about it, Mark?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, and I must be honest, I'm not a well-versed linguist to be able to look at differences between them. What I do find interesting, however, is that the notion of waiting has potentially positive and negative connotations. Secondly, the visualization of waiting differs by culture. So if you look at a bus queue in Finland, it's quite different to a bus queue in the UK. In both places, you've got humans waiting for something, but the way they wait is fundamentally different. And in some respects, I'm sure there are differences and that there would be many other examples. But I find it fascinating the way we interpret things and how we communicate with each other if there is a shared visualization of what a verb is. That waiting, that queuing. Queuing is such a nice word compared to waiting. You can wait on your own. Queuing is immediately communal. You are not alone when you queue, but you can be alone when you wait.
The concept of waiting has emotion wrapped into it. What you just said, Mark, about queuing versus waiting. But the example that somebody said a few minutes ago, when you see someone at the top of the stairs that you've been waiting for, that's full of emotion, isn't it? If I'm going to take that girl out on a date, I've been waiting all day or maybe all week for it, and I've been thinking and different scenarios and so on, and then all of a sudden, there she is. That's so full of emotion.
And this is what we came to in the noon discussion generally, that maybe this Czech term is emotional transferred into a word. Because DOČKAT, final beat, be on the moment when you are there, is really a very strong emotional feeling. And maybe this is just a transfer or transformation of the emotion into a single word. It was quite interesting to talk about it. Of course, we talked about weight. Do you think that waiting increase the value of the item you are waiting for, or of the
Absolutely.
something?
Absolutely. If you get if you get just what you want just when you want it, it has a much lower value, and pretty soon you don't want things or nothing satisfies you.
Kevin, you would like to add something to that?
I was going to say, going on from what Bill was saying, there's different kinds of waiting. There's waiting which is full of anticipation, and then there's waiting which is full of frustration. I think it's really interesting. When I lived in Germany, every bus stop has a printed timetable. And of course, the bus is expected to arrive exactly at that minute, 1 minute above that printed time. The bus drivers will start to get grief. Whereas in English timetable, it's much more of a suggestion. The one thing they usually get right is the year. And then it gets a little bit more hazy when you go to the month, the day, and especially the hour. Then that's really hit and miss.
Yeah,
Have you?
I mean, it's an
Yeah.
appreciation of literature. You know, it's that fascination with Samuel Beckett and waiting for Godot. You know, Godot never appears. Often the bus never appears.
I just wonder whether you traveled in Czech Republic. So we have the buses are, let's say, quite accurate, but the trains, they are not. They are not. It's quite crazy because, I am just now wondering myself, we have talked several times about those self-driving cars. I do understand the complexity of the issues and so on. But I'm asking myself, why do trains need someone to steer them? They have the iron roads. They cannot ride somewhere right or left. The computer can hold over, but nobody was for a long time speaking about self-riding trains or tube.
So there are many train services that are completely autonomous. They have no driver, and they exist. They tend to be on small sections of line, and for multiple reasons, whether it's safety, whether it's whatever. Unfortunately, I was talking to a station master just 2 days ago, my local station, and I said to him, how do you see the changes occurring, and what are the biggest hassles? And one of the sad things that he said was the number of people that are ending their lives at the moment, and how the number of people throwing themselves under trains has increased as we see greater depression. And he said there's far more of it than there was before. So those drivers, are not so worried about turning left or right off the rails. They have to do other things, and animals, obstacles, various other things on the lines are some of the security things that do occur. But what is interesting, particularly as we're talking about waiting, is that trains are always late when you're in a hurry.
Yep, it's true. It's like if you dial the wrong number, somebody always answers it.
I know.
So that goes back to what we said a minute ago, that waiting is full of frustration or it's full of anticipation. So that it all depends on whether or not you're late and that train needs to be on time.
Are you on time? Are you the man who would like to be exactly on the time and starting the events and everything? I don't ask Kevin, I know the answer. But let's ask the others. Of course, you can answer, Kevin. I know what the audience does not know.
Yeah.
If I've made a commitment to someone, I will always be there slightly early. Okay? But when it comes to other things, I find that going on journeys without necessarily a predetermined destination or a purpose for the journey is just a wonderful experience. Those journeys are the best journeys, where you don't know where they're going, how long they're going to take. And it's wonderful because the waiting experience is in itself glorious as long as you're queuing, as long as there are other people. If one is waiting purely in isolation, it can be, well, it is clearly very lonely and can be a real downer. Unless, of course, you're anticipating someone that's going to get off that train or whoever you're going to meet or something. But if you're going somewhere, it's wonderful to just go with the flow.
When I was younger, my father, among many things that he taught me, would say, if you're going to a business meeting and you're not 5 or 10 minutes early, you're late. And so for my whole career, if I told you I was going to be there at 1 o'clock, I was really going to be there at 10 of or quarter of. And my dad's voice is in the back of my head.
You know what I do not understand? How people can be late for online meetings. There are so many. I was yesterday, no, the day before yesterday, I was on an online conference by United Nations. 600 people appeared. It was about SDG goals and so on, including Jeffrey Sachs. It was quite interesting to listen to it. Unfortunately, the content was not so good. So I do understand his work and everything, but yeah, it's connected to SDG goals and United Nations and all this stuff which I'm facing for so long. But they simply say, let's wait another 5 minutes to start. Why should we wait?
Right. Why are you penalizing me and making me waste 5 or 10 minutes because other people are late?
Exactly.
And so whoever is facilitating that meeting needs to say, it is 10 o'clock. We are going to start. Otherwise, guess what? Guess what I'm going to do next time? I'm going to be 5 minutes or 10 minutes late because you're going to wait for me.
Yes. And you know, the problem goes the other way too. So let me tell you about my tennis club. Okay. So we have this tennis club. And for those of us that are able to, we have club sessions in the evenings and also on certain days during the week. So at lunchtime, there'll be sessions. So these sessions are due to start at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Okay? And then people started turning up at 10 to 1 so that they could get some practice in before the session started. And then they realized that everyone was turning up at 10 to 1. And so people started turning up at 20 to 1. And this, once again, the same problem occurred. So our 1 o'clock sessions now start at 12:15. And even then, people are pushing it by turning up at 10 minutes past 12.
You know, Mark, that goes right along with what you said a minute ago about going on a journey with no schedule, right?
Yeah.
They love to, it's just another example of doing something that you love to do. So you're going to get there a little bit ahead of time. When you do something that you don't want to do, like go sit and talk with the boss, then it might be later. So maybe it has to do with whether or not you like what you're doing. In fact, Mark, that reminds me when you were talking about the journey. My wife and I took a journey. It was about 1,000 miles up the East Coast, and we promised ourselves we would not drive any more than 4 hours on any day. And so the conversation the whole time we were on the road had to do with where shall we stop? Shall we go here? Shall we curve up that way and stop and see something? And so it was full of anticipation. When you've got a schedule, there's no anticipation. There's not a lot of joy in it. You just want to get there, and that's your accomplishment is getting there, right? Rather than the journey.
Yes.
What you says just reminds me on riding on unicycle, on the electric unicycle. You know, when the people ride on bike, they have an aim, they have a target, they have to reach it, then come back. I don't care. I have learned with this unicycle, because of the small size, I can turn anywhere, to the right, to the left, whatever. And I have found so many places around the place where I was living for 20 years, which I never saw before, and I never visited before, because car was too big, because I was too lazy to walk, or because the bike was needed to reach some destination. But it was so interesting. And even today, I enjoy it. I ride all the time. I have it all the time in the trunk of my car. When I go to a factory, I arrive 1 hour earlier, ride around the city and location, enjoy the time and relax, and then I go. So I can say that having a electric unicycle helped me to enjoy waiting, because I do not wait with the hands like that. I just do something in the meantime, and I really enjoy it.
And when you do that, I'm guessing you see things you never would have seen before,
Yes.
like walking. When my wife and I walk, there are streets in this town. I've lived here in this town for 40 years, and there are streets that I've never been on. And all of a sudden I find myself on another new street. And I wouldn't have done that if I was driving a car. You have to walk, you have to ride your bike, something so that you see or understand what you didn't understand before.
Excuse me a second.
I think that in generational terms, we are the least tolerant to waiting generation ever. I think previous generations, they were much more patient, much more waiting was a part of life. Whereas today we expect everything to be done immediately. I stopped
That's it.
using
Why
those.
is
Sorry,
that
but
different? Why is that different, Kevin? I understand what you're saying, and I find it fascinating, but why would that be?
I think it's just the scale. But before you would go to a shop when when I was a student, if I ordered a book, I knew it would take 21 days before it was delivered. Whereas now, if I go to Amazon, if it's not delivered in 2 days, this is the most inconvenient thing. More than 2 days, there's no way. Then I'll try and get it somewhere else. And it is just the fact that maybe we're just spoiled. But everything comes much easier to us, much quicker. Whereas our parents would have to wait longer times.
Is it because the construct, which time is, as we agreed many times, because the construct become part of our life? None of us wear watches. I don't use alarm clocks, nothing like that. I just feel I have to go or wake up or anything, so I do it, and all the time on time. It's strange. I don't know how I do it. People ask me. I simply don't know, but it works. So what you just described is maybe, how many people say that we are living in the most, in the fastest time, whatever. No, it's the same. Just we do different things. We try to do much more. I just read yesterday, preparing the newsletter, I read that some scientists make a investigation on people who work every day with AI. And they find out that these people face frequently, they call it brain fry. Brain fry, is it English?
Fried brains.
Yes, exactly. That they are overcooked the brain because they are trying to really compete with the AI, with the speed and everything, and the brain stop working properly in some way. Quite interesting study.
I think the brain works very differently than older generations that spent so much time in nature, right? If you're spending time with screens, that's so different. I'd love to see a study how it's different than people who, walk in the woods. My grandchildren, we take them to the woods and walk in the woods. Um, if I had to look at a screen all day long, I think I'd go crazy. And always trying to figure it out, right? Second guess. And so it's always a game or it's a contest with the computer. Yuck.
It's interesting to just looking at AI and the experience that we're seeing at the moment. So clearly we know that we've had AI for over 40 years. We know we called it machine learning, we called it visual recognition before, pattern recognition before, all of these things. But now we're looking at agentic AI, we're looking at LLMs, and we're looking at people using a tool. And in using the tool, many of them are losing the ability to actually go through the process. So in some respects, it's a bit like people using a calculator. When they first used a calculator, they forgot how to do calculations. They just pressed the buttons and there was the answer. And what's interesting about the parallel between AI use at the moment and waiting is that you've got the difference between, do you put the emphasis on the output or on the process? So with AI, you're not going through the personal learning process. You're actually using this tool to give you output, which might be correct, might be complete garbage, but it's giving you output, a presentation, a report, recommendations. Similarly with waiting, one can either look at it as waiting for an outcome, for output from that waiting, or one looks at it as the process of waiting. And that output or outcome is different to the process. And so then the question I ask is waiting a good discipline? Because it implies putting the emphasis on the process. So just as Bill was saying about going for the walks and, as he said last week, looking around, taking in the environment, rather than we've got to drive 4 hours to get to this place. It's actually far more is achieved on that journey than simply worrying about a destination and output. I promise I'll stop there.
As you were speaking, I remember my first year of college, they introduced the Texas Instrument 2500, and it was $100. And my two roommates each bought one, and I couldn't put $100 together. So I didn't. I got it the next semester when it was $50. And I can remember teachers in college saying, calculators are not allowed for this exam. Why wouldn't that's because they want you to demonstrate your command of the process,
Yes.
not the answer.
Yes, yes. And I have to ask, if the calculators were $100 first year and $50 in the second year, were they half as good, or did they come up with the same answers? Okay. It's a bit like getting onto aircraft. You can have first class, you can have business class, you can have cattle class, whatever. What's interesting is that all of you take off at the same time and all of you arrive at the same time, but there's this phenomenal difference in pricing, and it's clearly nothing to do with that output. You're paying for the process, the size of the seat while you're there.
And waiting is a process. I'm pretty sure of that. It's something we have to go through for good, bad, or ugly. It is a process, and we put ourselves through the process quite often.
Yeah. Yes.
It's quite interesting. Not only in logistics, there is used the term bottleneck, and as something negative. Let's find the bottleneck, eliminate it, and to streamline the process or whatever. I was thinking, having a bottle here, why the people invented bottlenecks? Not to make it harder, but to be able to drink out of the bottle. So I start to see the bottleneck with very different eyes. I start to see it as something, as a controlling mechanism. So simple. And when I say it on some lean leadership, whatever workshop in Singapore, the people has been very surprised, never asking this question. They just simply accepted bottleneck is something wrong, like waiting is something wrong. But when there is the golden medal on the end of the competition or whatever, this moment of achieving what was expected, it's a very opposite thing. So this is why the value, and you mentioned it, Bill, that waiting increased the value of things. So you valued the book much more if you order it. No, it was Kevin. You order it, you value it at a time much more when you know that you have to wait 21 days. It is simply so. So, but we still, majority of people don't see it this way. And we are trying to be pushed, our online food delivery services. I don't mean a pizza or so, but really whole shopping. They say within 4 hours in some cities. You buy, in 4 hours, you have your cart at your doorstep. So through this impression that waiting is something negative, they push us into we are losing our ability to plan. And it's quite interesting because we don't need to plan. We have it in 4 hours. So why should I plan? I think.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that convenience focuses on the metric of time, and it focuses on the quantity of time rather than the quality. So yes, I can go online and order my groceries and get them delivered. If I go to a store or a market, I can pick which vegetables, which fruits I want, rather than only accepting those that turn up. But I have been conditioned to believe that time is the most important factor. Now, what's bizarre with that is that anyone that enjoys gardening knows that the joy of actually planting seeds, planting bulbs, and waiting for them to flourish, to blossom, to produce their fruits is a wonderful, wonderful process with an extraordinary outcome. But one is part of that process of seeing that grow. And somehow we've allowed ourselves to become conditioned into this quantification of time. And I put a lot of it down to Domino's pizzas and the idea that if your pizza didn't arrive at a certain time, you got your money back.
I had an old Soviet joke about waiting. And if you wanted to buy a car in the Soviet Union, you had to join a list to get permission to buy a car. And so you were on this list for a few years and then you could buy the car. So this young couple, they're on this list and they get the permission. So they go to the Lada shop to order their car. And the Lada guy writes everything down. He says, "It's yours in 5 years." And the guy says, 5 years? He said, "It won't be delivered in January, will it?" And the Lada guy says, "Probably not. Why?" He said, "Well, that's when our telephone arrives."
I was living at the time in Czechoslovakia. My father was waiting for 5 years for his car.
Yeah.
It was not it was Lada as well.
Yeah.
For the grocery stores in the Soviet Union, where you would have to wait at the butcher's counter, and then he would give you a slip, which you would take over and wait in line to pay. And once you had paid, you would get a slip and you would go back to the butcher. So you're waiting in 3 different lines for everything. And yeah, waiting. What is the opposite of waiting? Domino's
Oh.
Pizza.
That's really interesting. Yeah, what is the opposite of waiting?
Delivery,
Yeah.
action, no,
Arrival. Yeah.
arrival. Arrival is, I think it's close.
I think it's missing out.
Yeah, doing without
Yeah.
while you wait. But arrival is it's like seeing the woman at the top of the stairs that you've been waiting for a week, and all the anticipation. But it's that moment when you see what it is that you want, but you have waited, you have paid for that one. So
You know,
so arrival, I'm not sure. There's
It's
something
quite
else.
interesting that 4 of us, 4 men, has a trouble with the word proposed by Jane.
Yeah, I think we need to have serious words with Jane.
She does not speak English, so she does not know. And even I was surprised that this term does not exist in English. So
I think we can convey our feelings towards Jane without any barriers of language. You know, I have to tell you a funny story. Okay, so this is absolutely true.
2 minutes left. 2 minutes left.
Okay, well, so oh God, no, I can't tell you. It's yes, I can. So there I am. I go into this local store, okay, and whenever I go to the store, which I don't do very regularly, I always go to the counter where you have someone at the till rather than the self-service thing because of the conversation. So I go to this thing in the till, and there's a particular woman who's a real character, and stories are always great. Anyway, she was taking all the time. I've got all my stuff on the counter, and a woman came up behind me with her trolley, and she said, "I do love this shop." I said, "Yeah, no, it's wonderful." She said, "Yes, but the paper in the ladies' toilets could be improved." I didn't have any answer for that. Sorry, Michael.
I have to thank you for the conversation because we have the last minute. And I think that none of us is waiting for the end. So what we are waiting is for the next event. So for now, let me wish you all the best. Have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its time. Be free, be human, and let's enjoy the end of waiting when we see the loved one on the top of the stairs. And see you next week. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.